Welcome back to Success is Weird and Messy. I'm your host, Kathleen Gabriel. Every week, I talk with entrepreneurs about their business, the obstacles they faced, and the changes they've made. With me today is Kristin Gravitt, a CPA and fractional CFO, who helps business owners simplify their finances, increase profits, and reclaim their personal time. Kristin, it's so good to have you here.
Hello, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, to kick us off, tell us all about your work and your business.
Okay, well, like she said, I am a CPA, a fractional CFO, and a certified tax coach. I'm not your typical CPA firm where you come and just get your taxes prepared in March and April. I work with clients all year round so we can stay on top of their finances, make sure they're not behind, and just make sure that they have a plan and are able to project forwards. Proactive here instead of reactive.
That is so important because I will tell you, doing one's finances, especially not as a financial professional, as I am not, it can be so challenging. And just having someone fly in and say, okay, I guess you're fine, is not as helpful as having someone who can actually guide you through, well, yes, but what does all this mean and what should I do with it?
Yes, yes. A lot of clients that have come to me have been like, "Well, we've only met with our CPA once per year. We do our bookkeeping right before we get the tax return done, and they're living out of their bank account, which is
Yeah.
not a good way. Like you can't plan ahead. You might have a lot of cash in your account one month and not realize that the next month you have software updates and insurance due, and wham, it wipes out your whole checking account and you're like, oh my gosh, where'd all the money go? So
Right. And especially when you're working on just running your business and, I don't know, getting a product or service out the door, generating new sales, maybe that day-to-day finance isn't necessarily what you're thinking about. And that'll sink you because the
yeah,
finances are everything.
yes, it'll sink you and it will also keep you up at night. So you'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, do I have enough money for that? And then just think of if you want to start building a team down the road, you don't know how much that's going to cost or if you can afford it. So it's very important to keep it up. But like you said, it's easy to get into the daily day and getting work done and getting more business in where it's kind of like kicking the can down the road. Like, okay, I'll do it later. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next month. I still have 6 months left in the year. And then all of a sudden, bam, it's December.
Yeah. Do I have that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you as an HR professional, that's one of those things coming in with employees is it's not just the cost of wages. Having employees has so many costs that you may or may not anticipate and so many more efforts that you may or may not anticipate. And
Yes.
so actually that I know that you have people on your team. What was that fulcrum point that led you to go from solopreneur to like full on employer?
Well, I was doing all the things all myself, and I realized there's only so much time in the day. And I'm a mother of two young kids, and one of them started kindergarten last fall. And the school that she was going to it's a school where she goes to school 3 days a week, and we homeschool 2 days a week. It was very important for us to have her go to this school. So we knew, I could not handle all of the client work without having some back support. So
Yeah.
I planned ahead. I knew that this was coming like 6 months before because that's what we had planned on doing and started to set up the internal structure, so I could bring on a team to help back me. And it was very strategic on how I like which team members I brought in first too. So I didn't bring them all in at one time.
Who was your first team member then? What function did you think was key to making this happen?
So I did hire an amazing business coach. I'd be happy to drop her because she's amazing. The first person I brought in was like an office manager, and she helped me set up the structure and get all of the SOPs down. Everything I did, I videoed. So when I did bring in the next team member, I would have a video for them to know how to do steps so they wouldn't have to come ask me millions of questions. So I brought her in first. And then we hired an administrative assistant to take off some of the like smaller tasks at hand. And then we brought in Tim, our CPA, to help take over some of the daily work. So it was very strategic on who we brought in first.
And I think it is so smart to really realize the value in that administrative and operational support.
Hmm.
I think sometimes we as entrepreneurs get very controlling about, well, this doesn't take that much time or effort, and I know how to do it, I'll just do it. And then you
Yeah.
realize that your whole day is filled with that rather than with the business of your business. And your time is genuinely better spent doing the business of your business rather than, I don't know, managing your calendar,
Yeah.
you know, and all
Yes.
of the many, many things that administrative people do. And,
Yes.
when they're an administrative professional, they'll probably even do it better than us. That's literally what they do for a living.
I still find myself being like, oh, I can just do this small little thing. But then I'm like, no, pass it off. Pass it off.
I mean, so it sounds like you're really living the thing that you're advertising in your services, in that you are saying that you can help business owners reclaim their time. And you started with reclaiming your own time.
Yes. I put myself in one of my packages
Nice.
so I can
That's how you
go
know it
take
works.
test it out, take myself through it, and we're always, tweaking things because nothing is perfect, but every business is different. But yeah, just it's really been a game changer, and I did it all without taking a pay cut. I actually gave myself a raise this year.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
So it is doable.
And that's it. And I think that that's one of the things that you have is that you can really look at the numbers and say, all right, what's the goal and how do we get here with what resources?
Yes.
Because I think that's a missing piece to a lot of especially new business owners is they know a certain part of it of like maybe I'm generating a lot of sales.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, am I generating revenue? How much am I paying myself? How much time off do I have? Do I get to take a vacation? Or am I so necessary to every moment of this business that, taking a couple days off is actually disastrous?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people are focused on that top line, like
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to be a seven-figure business. But what are you taking home? And like you said, what time do you have left in the day? Are you just like dragging in the door at 8 o'clock and having like a $10,000 salary and or not even paying yourself regularly? Like my advice is to, yeah, you want to get that seven figures, but what do you need to live off of? What is your personal goals and your personal dreams? Like, why are you doing this business? Set your pay first, like your first, like your top line, and then what you're going to pay yourself should be first, and then what's left is what you have to work with for your other expenses, like hiring somebody. Do you need a new office or can you work from home? Like that, just those sort of things. Just make yourself priority.
Yeah. And it's so interesting in the kind of capitalist world that we're living in that that isn't as common a thought as you would presume.
Hmm.
It tends to be more about what can I do for the business to succeed and maybe take myself out of that equation because I am the business and if the business is succeeding, I am succeeding. But really, what is that success? Am I able to, I don't know, even meet my base living expenses, much less thrive in my
Hmm.
life? And what does that thriving look like? Because I don't know, especially the younger generations coming up, there is a real focus on balance of time. There's
Yeah.
a real focus on, yes, but do I get to live a life in this life? And I think that's deeply important because if we don't get to live a life, what are we doing?
Exactly. I agree too, because like the focus is on living a life, self care, being happy. And I feel like, I mean, that's why I started my business was to have a life because I worked for a big four accounting firm and we had no life.
Yeah.
We were expected to work like 80 hours a week. And then when we had time off, we had to go to happy hours to be team building. Like we were always expected to be at work or
Yeah.
working. And like my husband, I'm not saying it's always easy with the schedule that I have and running the business and the family, but my husband was like, imagine if you were still working at one of the big four firms, you would not be home with us for dinner at night during tax season. He's like,
No.
you would be gone from us. And now, like during tax season, I had 2 days of homeschool, home for dinner. And did have to work some in the evenings just to get through tax season, but it was nothing like before.
No, exactly. And honestly, you wouldn't be able to have that homeschool schedule where you yourself were at home for those 2 days if you were in a big firm, because what big firm is going to say, oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to be available to us for the, whatever part of whatever week. That's cool. Despite all of the studies showing that, giving people balance, giving people the opportunity to genuinely rest and recover produces infinitely better work.
Supposedly, isn't it like if you work, you probably know it better because you're HR, you lose steam after even 8 hours a day is too much, like
Yeah.
to fully like to straight on work because you lose
Yeah.
concentration. You have like a few hours window of when you're like really spot on during the day, and that's when you can be more productive.
I mean, honestly, studies have shown that genuine breaks in the middle of the day, the experiments that are being done in different parts of the world right now on the 32-hour work week as opposed to the 40-hour work week is showing that people are more productive and the business is more profitable, even though people are working fewer hours,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a greater focus on focused productivity, and people are refreshed enough to have focused productivity. Because you're right, if you're working 80 hours per week, honestly, you're not that focused. You have lost a lot of that sort of cognitive presence, which doesn't mean that everyone who's doing that is doing bad work. It just means that their individual projects would probably be more focused, more creative, more productive if they were working less and had that rest.
Being able to do that takes planning and staying on top of your finances and projecting out and setting monetary goals. Like, say your goal is to make $100,000 in a year. Well, let's break it out into months and set your goal in the beginning of the month so you know what to work towards throughout the month. And then when you get halfway, recheck where you're at, see what you need to bring in or what type of invoicing you need to do so you can really reach those goals.
Do you also help your clients on things like the difference between sales and profit? And like if someone's making a ton of sales, but their margins are so narrow that they're barely surviving, do you help them sort of rethink what they're doing in their offerings and how they sort of structure that part of their finances?
Yeah, we can go in and look at each service line. So what I recommend is when you're doing your accounting is to not lump all of your income, like if you have multiple services, not lump all the income under just income. Have it broken out so you can see which service item is bringing in what and then see what your margins are. And if you're spending a lot of time on one that's not bringing in a whole lot, maybe you just need to cut that one, and then you can also look at some of your other services that maybe things that you're doing that you're not even charging for and turn that into a service as well. And then really see which ones are more profitable. And if you need to increase your prices, go in and maybe cut out some expenses to make sure that you're being as profitable as you can.
Yeah. And I've seen time and time again companies make pivots because they realize at a certain point, oh, wait, maybe this thing that I'm so attached to is actually high effort, low return. And this thing that I didn't personally value is low effort, high return. Maybe that's actually what the marketplace wants. And
Yeah,
I need to rethink what I'm doing here. But if you're not looking at your numbers, you're never going to discover that. And if you're not
no.
looking at it with detail and with, actual precision and goal setting, you're not going to reach there.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, if you're not looking at it or if you're putting it all together just to get a tax return done, you're never gonna know.
Like, you do have to get your taxes done. You do have to file taxes,
Yeah.
but that can't be the only thing.
Yeah, and another thing too, if you keep up with it throughout the year, tax season is going to be a breeze because you just hand it over to
Yeah.
your accountant and you're like, there you go, it's done. So you don't have to have that scramble, and you're not spending 3 months in the beginning of the year focused on getting a back year's worth of numbers together. You're already focused on what you need to be for that current year that you're in.
I have that same thing in HR with employee reviews.
Hmm.
Is I dislike annual reviews because they're a look back that, 11 months ago, what good is this feedback?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just having constant communication throughout the course of the year, if you want to do an annual review, then it should just be like, oh, hey, remember all of our conversations? This is what they were.
Yeah.
And that makes everything so much easier so that you're not kind of scrambling and going, yeah, what did we all do? And what impact did it have? And why are we doing all of this?
Yeah.
Um, and so this is another way that having that targeted professional support in all of your business operations is key to your success. Because
Yeah.
then you're not sort of flailing in the, oh, I know that this is important and I need to get it done, but now I have to go through, I don't know, a pile of receipts or whatever to find out what I'm even doing.
A lot if you're doing like trying to go back and go through a pile of receipts too, like you're going to miss important deductions and end up overpaying in taxes as well. So,
Yeah.
and then you may have a huge tax bill that you didn't even realize was coming your way, and you don't have the money to pay it because you spent it. You didn't save back for it.
No, and those sort of things can be such terrible surprises if you're not recognizing that that's what's happening. And like you were saying, so easy to sort of manage for if you know what you're looking for and you know what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
So with that, what would surprise business owners the most about accounting and finance? What do you think is a misconception people might have about either what you do or your industry in general?
I think a lot of people are just afraid of it. They're afraid of getting, like, they're intimidated by it. And so if they're intimidated by it, then they put it aside and they don't want to look at it. So that's a misconception where if I don't look at it, it's not there. It's like kind of like don't see me, but it's still there. And it's not really that hard as long as you like keep up with it throughout the year, like doing it in small bits, like weekly. If you keep up with your books weekly instead of waiting 6 months and then having hundreds or thousands worth of transactions to go in, and if you're using QuickBooks to classify, if you do it every week, then you can look at it on a weekly basis, and doing small bits here and there is a lot easier than a whole bunch at once.
Yeah, I think the key to everything in life is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you want to improve, it turns out you just have to do it a little bit consistently.
And a lot of people just think that they just can't do it. They can't figure it out. But with a little bit of guidance, like if you want to do it yourself with a little bit of guidance and help, it can become like just a routine thing and become easy for you.
And I think getting that proper guidance, someone who's really going to help you through that and have the knowledge that you don't necessarily have to begin with, I think that
Yeah.
that's key as well.
Yes.
So, how do you see, if you do, how do you see things evolving in finance and accounting? What changes do we see on the horizon?
As far as tax wise, we don't know.
Yeah, we never do.
I know. I think like AI is probably something big that's going to change accounting and just automating things. But still, you still have to put the human in that equation. You can't just let everything be automated and think it's right, and not look at it and think everything's going right. You still need to put the human in it, and your brain, and just really who
Yep.
you are as yourself. So I
Yeah.
think that that's a big thing that's on the horizon. Everyone's like, let's ask Chat GPT. I'll go in and ask it tax questions, and it's actually given me back incorrect information, and I'll fight with it. I'm like, no, that's not right. And they're like, yes, it is. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, AI at the moment for that kind of thing, it can search for what people have said. And unfortunately, that doesn't filter out what is factual. It's just what has been said. And those are very different things.
Yes, it is. Because it'll tell, like, I'll put in a question and it'll tell me one thing, and then I'll kind of argue with it, and then it'll like tell me something different. And I'm like, okay, now which one is it?
Yeah.
And then it'll try to squish the two together. I'm like, all right, well, this is not right.
And I mean, I think you're right. AI is very much, from what I can tell, it's kind of like the internet itself. It is here to stay with
Hmm.
all of its many joys and flaws.
Yes.
And with that, I think, especially since we're just at the very beginning of this sort of generative AI product process, just be cautious about what it's giving you.
Yeah.
Maybe have that be a starting place and iterate on your own. Maybe have it be the start of a query and then fact check it in locations that you trust,
Definitely.
because it absolutely can help, and everyone is using it, and absolutely all these products are looking for ways to insert AI into their platforms.
Hmm.
So that's just the new normal. But I think you're absolutely right that that is one of those things of, yeah, use it, but be cautious about what kinds of use you're doing and what kinds of advice you're taking from it.
Exactly. I like to put in some like emails and be like, can you make me sound a little bit better? And then,
Absolutely. Oh, no, and I've absolutely done the thing of, I know that this is what I want to say, but my words are coming out garbage. So tell me what a reasonable person would sound like when they want to convey this information.
yes.
And that has been hugely helpful, just because then that kicks me past writer's block, that kicks me past other stuff. Terrific. Love AI for that.
Yes.
Wish it weren't so taxing on the environment. Hope that they can figure that out as well.
Yeah.
So, things like that of, I think you're right. We're going to have all of these new tools. We're going to have all of these things. It is interesting. How do you keep ahead of all of these changes? Because literally every year you're going to have changes to tax code, especially if you work nationally, because both state and federal are going to have changes. Practices and goals, both individually in the companies and then writ large, are going to be changing, especially, our economy right now is pretty volatile.
Yeah.
People are making pivots because they have to. How do you stay ahead in your own work and for your clients?
So I keep up with, I'm a member of American Institute of Certified Tax Planners, and we meet once a month and have education once a month. So just really keeping up with my classes, my continuing education every year. I go to conferences to make sure that we're on top of things and just, you know, keeping up with my education. It is definitely a requirement for my CPA license, but I mean, I learn a lot from my membership that I'm in with the American Institute of Tax Planners, and just really
Yeah.
like going back and forth with other CPAs. I have other CPAs that we will get on the phone with and be like, my client had this. Like, what do you think about this? And just having a community of other professionals come together is very helpful in staying top of things.
I think that's a really good point, because it can get a little lonely
Yeah.
when you're running your own show and you're making all of the decisions. Having other people who know what you do, who understand the problems of it, and can give you like real world advice, that's huge.
Yes, because tax law can be very gray, and depending on the way that you read it and interpret it, other people can read it differently than what you do, and it's just like, oh, okay, now I get it. And then even today, I met with another CPA that I'd had contact with a long time ago, and he offers advisory services. And we were like sharing back and forth, like, what software do you use for KPIs? And like, it was hadn't seen him or talked to him in years, and we were just like, we need to meet more so we can like go back and forth and collaborate with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have my HR folks the same way, because I feel like all law, well, maybe not all law, but lots of law is like that, where it's more about preponderance of evidence or what would a reasonable person assume. And well, which reasonable person, what kind of reason,
Yeah.
what kind of evidence? And so, like, was this bad behavior or a fireable offense? Or is this person, reasonably speaking, a consultant or an employee? And that's all preponderance of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really comes down to, all right, other professionals, you've dealt with stuff like this before. If this was on your plate, what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. I ask everyone, and so now I am going to ask you, Kristin, how do you define success?
Well, everyone defines it differently. Some define it monetarily, and some define it as like personal time, what you can do for yourself. I have defined my success as how I can run my business and still be a hands-on mom and still make money doing it and provide for my family. So that's how I've defined my success. And I feel like I've been successful, but I still have a long ways to go and to where I want to get my business. But I feel like the success is what you're feeling inside when you're there. And when you reach a goal, live in it for a little while before you move on to the next thing.
I love that. Live in it. Yes. Because how often do we achieve something and say, okay, I did it. What's the next thing?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, I did this.
Exactly, because that was like your dream months or years ago, and you got there. So take some time to live in it and really enjoy it before like going to the next thing. For seeing a squirrel and going
Yeah.
on.
I have a piece of printed art from a local Portland artist that says, "Remember when you wanted what you have now."
Yeah.
And I have that in my office because I definitely get into that space of saying, okay, well, I need to do better, better, better. This isn't enough. And then I have to stop and think, no, wait, I am literally living the dream. This is what I wanted and I have it.
Yes, because I've always dreamed of being a partner in a CPA firm, and now I own one.
Right. You're not just a partner, you're the firm.
Yeah, because I was like, I am going to do that one day. I'm going to make sure I do that, and here I am.
And here you are.
Hard work and dedication, and just looking forward, like looking at the dream, and then I need to do that myself like, while I'm here, like living it for a little bit before I'm like, I need to move on to the next level, which I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. And sometimes this level is a good level to be at. And yes, of course, I feel like every entrepreneur has that drive to do more.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we go into business in the first place, because we're driven to achieve and do more.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's terrific. And that's part of that success. But also, step back and acknowledge yourself once in a while.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, for all the entrepreneurs listening, Kristin offers a membership to newer business owners. Maybe you're doing all of your own finances, so that once a month, when you're subscribed to her service, you get once a month teaching and a once a month Q&A session. And so go on to her website, kristingravitt.com, check that out, and you can get the first month for free. So
Yes.
you can even see how extremely valuable this is to you in your business, especially when you're being very budget conscious to begin with and saying, well, I still want to DIY, but I want to DIY this right. This is a great opportunity to get that going.
Yes, and all prior recordings and classes are in the bank or in the vault. So you get access to all of them, and it's a different topic every month. And then if you have a question throughout the month when you're DIYing and doing your stuff yourself, you can come into the Q&A and rapid fire some questions at me. Be happy to help you. You actually get a real live CPA to answer your questions for a fraction of what it would be if you hired one-on-one for an hour.
Oh, incredible. Well, then everyone, please go check out kristingravitt.com. Take advantage of that free month. You will not regret it. Kristin, thank you again for joining me today. Is there anywhere else people should find you online?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So you can find me there. I think if you just search Kristin Gravitt, you should be able to find me.
So terrific. I will have that in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You can find Success is Weird and Messy wherever you get your podcasts. And it helps us so much if you follow, rate, and review. And if you like the show, tell a friend. We'll see you next week.